Greetings, salutations, and welcome back to another video. Now, 2 weeks ago I had intended to keep a running time lapse of me building this, but my work style and the amount of time that actually went into it just made that a bit difficult to do. But here you can see it in its folded down position. So if I just lift the handle up here, it can click right into place like that, and there we go, ready for printing. I haven't got it all wired up, that's the last stage. I've got some short wires for here, but they'll need to be lengthened. This is from the original design, which had the GT2560 mounted here, whereas I have them all mounted in the base here. But currently we've got the power supply in the back to a little switch here, to the PSU, to the GT2560 screen, and I've currently got the Y-axis wired up and the Z end stop. So yeah, other cabling will arrive tomorrow, hopefully, and then I can get the rest wired up, which would be excellent to give it a few small test runs. I could go further with assembling the Y at the moment, but that would obviously mean that I wouldn't be able to get as easy access to in here, so I'm holding off on that. The Y carriage is made out of 6mm ply. I managed to convince my university to CNC that for me, so that allowed me to get the complexity and also the neatness that I desired. And it basically works with an adjustable tensioner on the bottom instead of on here. It was a bit difficult getting it in here with the V-slot potentially in the way. And yeah, it bolts down onto 4 LM8UUs with little brackets that go in here. The brackets have small grooves in them that slip into the grooves on here, and that just holds everything nicely in place. Now, you'll notice on this design that on the bottom where the tensioning bolts would go, there is in fact a nut hole, and that's because instead of using standard tensioning thumb wheels like I have there, I decided to design this so that you tension it by screwing the bolts tighter from the top using an Allen key. Now that's a bit of an odd method, I know, and possibly not the easiest to do, but that was one of the constraints that I came up against when I was originally designing this. And I kind of designed it from the bed outwards because I knew that would be the main constraint for all the other dimensions. Having finished it to this level, it may be possible to readjust it to put wheels in instead, and I think the plywood should be fine for that. So we'll see how that goes in the future. I have come up with a few alterations I want to make already, such as changing up my carriage a bit. It's currently designed so that you can have a 50mm fan stuck on the back for print cooling. Unfortunately, the fan is slightly big for the carriage and may cause issues when homing here, but by swapping that for a 40mm fan we can save a bit of space, hopefully not lose too much air. I would like to maybe file down the insides of these 605ZZs, just because they don't actually fit onto the lead screws properly, so these are sticking out the tops. It still works, it just doesn't look as good. And a few other things like that. One of the problems I have noticed is that these units, which allow it to fold, they just use a nice big LM8UU, sorry, I keep coming back to that word, a nice big M8 screw in here, which is 30mm long as the hinge, and a nylock nut inside here. Unfortunately, I'm noticing that every once in a while testing, the screw is slowly coming undone, which adds some looseness to the system, and I think that's just because of the amount of friction within there. So I might reprint a section here that just holds another 608ZZ bearing, so I can have one on either side, and that should just remove a lot of the force and stop that from happening. Now that's easy enough to swap out actually, because you can just unscrew the ends, slide those out, slide on the new bits, and that's nice and easy, simply because the printed T-nut inserts that I made for the screws, just to screw them onto the V-slot, they actually hold in really nice and tightly, so once you've got them in the right position, you can remove everything else and they will stay exactly where they were, so you can just reposition afterwards, which is a great advantage. I know I had been meaning to keep a time lapse for everything that I was doing, but yeah, my work style just doesn't suit that, really. And so as a result, I guess I'm going to have to make a build manual with little instructions on how to assemble all the parts, and just that actually makes more sense because I can then update that whenever I make an improvement to the design. Most of it does actually work by using just 8mm long M3s, and those go into the V-slot. Almost every single screw that goes into V-slot on this system is an M8, and I try to keep things as standardized as possible so that you don't end up with loads of screws of different sizes and it's just a set few. So that should be nice and easy to assemble. There's about 150 8mm long screws, that is. More in total, about 230 or so. It's a crazy number, but I do go over the top. Some of these might not even be necessary, but I do have a tendency to over-engineer with the screws just to make sure it's a nice tight fit. You'll find one or two M5s like this, and that's just bolting down into the V-slot here to ensure that when you lift, some of the force is getting transmitted right into a solid part of this and not just onto the friction mount that is the inserted nuts. So with that said, that's as far as I have gotten for now. I would like to talk later a bit more about the Honeybee Extruder, as I call it, which is similar to the Prusa i3 extruder actually, but with a few changes to customize it to my needs. But we'll save that for another video perhaps, and yeah, I'll keep you updated on this. I'm heading back to my hometown shortly for the Christmas holidays, which means that I will be away from this and back with Hephaestus, which gives me a good opportunity to, one, continue working, and two, to also print out the upgrades that I need for my next step of evolution in this system. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you will stay tuned and join me again next time. Goodbye.